thank you to AgileAssets for hosting us and giving us a platform to exchange our ideas and show some of the things that we've been working on. So far, this has been a good conference. As Greg said, we're going to talk a little bit about North Carolina's new planning process. If any of you all were here three years ago, I was on the main stage talking about our new planning process. Does anybody remember that? And during that presentation, we were talking about doing scenario analysis and optimizing our plans. And so we've completely changed direction, and we've gone with kind of a simplistic approach to planning, a bottoms-up approach, which has been really good for the department. So Camille and Doug and I are going to share some of the things that we've been working on. So I'll do introductions for Doug, Camille, and I, and about the department. We'll talk about legislation, which seems to drive a lot of the things that we do. Then we'll kind of get into some of the historic things that we've planned and how those have changed. And then we'll talk about the future, where we're going. And then one of our really core focus areas is spatial data. So Doug will kind of finish us up at the end of the presentation with our Esri Go platform that we're using to track some of our planning items. And I will probably go fairly fast to give Doug more time, because Doug's got all the cool, fun stuff that you all probably would rather hear about. So again, I'm Matthew. I've been with the department for about 15 years in a variety of positions, mostly involving asset management, our maintenance management system in particular. We've got Camille, who's been with the department for 3 years, but has about 20 years of experience. Most of that was with Norfolk in Virginia, and she said she was the one-woman pavement management engineer. So I thought that was good. And then we've got Doug up here, 17 years, and as you can see, Doug's pretty much had every position in the department. So he's the brain trust of us three. So we each bring something interesting to the table, I hope. Patrick mentioned this morning we have a lot of miles, we have a lot of inventory. Sometimes overwhelming how much we really have. I always laugh when I pull this slide up. The picture there is really just our LRS, our linear referencing system, and all the routes that we maintain. So we don't even really need the outline of a state. We can just pull up our routes, and you can see we have a lot of inventory and a lot of things to manage and track. Hence, we have a maintenance management system, or a full-scale asset management system. In North Carolina, many of you have districts, right? Districts? Okay. We call our area, we have 14 divisions, right? So if I say divisions, you can think of your districts. So we have 14 divisions and, 50 districts or so and 100 counties. And that's kind of how we're broken up. So Division 5 that we have circled, that's kind of the central part of the state where our central operations is held out of in Raleigh. Okay, historic planning. We've planned a lot of different ways in the department. But in years past, we planned basically kind of at a system level. So when I say system, I mean route classification. So basically at a county level by primary, secondary, interstate. So for you all in the room, when you all put together a maintenance plan, like if you put together an annual plan, what level is it? Is it at a county level or state level or district level? So let's see, county level or parish? Where's Vince? Okay. Statewide level? I'm sure you do it at a statewide level. What's the most granular that you all go down to? Roadway, okay. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because we've changed our plans from kind of a high level down to the actual asset in many cases. This is just a screenshot out of our maintenance management system, and you can see this is for one county. It's just a listing of the activities that they plan to do and how many quantities, so to speak. but that was at the system or the roadway level. All right, funding. So from a funding point of view, we've funded money a lot of different ways as well. Previously to this new method we're kind of embarking on, we did a needs-based allocation. So we would basically use our condition data that we get from our maintenance condition assessments, and we would go through and monetize the needs for each county, for each asset to reach a target level of service. And I presented on that in the past. That was an interesting method and had a lot of good things, but had some bad things too. And so we'll touch on those. So from a historic point of view, what worked well? And this is really where I want to camp out. Planning was pretty easy for the divisions, especially using our management systems. Back when Charles was here with Agile, we worked really hard to make planning easy for our divisions, and we almost made it too easy. In fact, we would allow them to pull up a previous year's plan and copy it forward in 2 clicks. And so they could take the previous year and pull it forward. Plan was saved, done. Right? Does it work that way in some of your states? That was good and bad because it was almost too easy. The box was checked and we moved on. So another thing that worked well was it was driven by condition. So it was really nice to say to somebody, well, we're putting this is from a funding point of view, we're putting the money where it needs to go, right? We've identified all our needs, and that's where we're putting the money. So that was a good thing. On the what did not work well, it was 100% needs driven. So when you think about that, let's say you've got a division or a district that is very efficient with their money. They have very good condition scores. So in theory, they get less money. And so that was not good for the department. And the other thing you have to think about is, did our condition assessments do a very good job of identifying all the needs? And so there were issues there. There were no increase in the appropriation from our legislature to the department. We really felt like if we could go and have good data to say, this is how much money we need, we would see appropriations increase. And hence, the allocation to the divisions or the districts would increase. That did not happen in some cases. The appropriation went down. The need calculation that I did was complicated. I wrote an SQL query, and I remember spending 2 months on writing that SQL query. It was several hundred lines of code that would go in and look at our expenditure tables in Agile, and it would pull in our condition data from our MCAP, our Maintenance Condition Assessment Program, and do a trade-off to determine how much more money they would need to bring up the level of service. And I went around the state, I remember, and I went into a division office and was explaining this, and it was just deer in the headlights. I mean, I did my very best to explain, and maybe I'm just not a good explainer, but I mean, I just remember I really, really tried hard to make it easy for folks to understand what we were doing, and it was complicated. It was probably how I looked when Charles Pilson originally told me about a knapsack algorithm for doing optimization. Really? It kind of blew my mind. So it was complicated, and sometimes complicated is not the best. There was not a lot of accountability. As I talked about earlier, we made it really easy for the divisions to put their plans together. And so they copied them forward and they checked the box, and that was it. And we moved on until the next year. The plan was complete. A little bit about our legislation that we have. A few years ago, our legislators passed a law. It was basically to put together a 5-year paving program at the route level So it was for preservation and rehab, and it was basically a listing for each division of what projects that they were going to do preservation and rehab type activities on for 5 years. And that legislation kind of drove our new planning process. It really worked well in North Carolina, and our appropriations actually increased once that legislation was passed and we successfully implemented that program. So from that, we built 2 other programs. We have a BMIP, which is a Bridge Maintenance Improvement Plan, and we have the existing HMIP, Highway Maintenance Improvement Plan, and now we have this new Routine Maintenance Improvement Plan. And at the end of the day, it's kind of a bottoms-up approach of building a plan. It's a 5-year work plan at the asset level. So it is basically just probably what you're thinking about, a listing of 5 years worth of projects and what we're going to do and when we're going to do them. In setting up the foundation for this, we kind of changed things over to a life cycle type approach. Instead of using analysis and optimization to make decisions, we kind of simplified things and said, you know, let's go back to simple. Let's estimate some inventories. Let's come up with a good life cycle to maintain those assets. And then we're going to calculate some goals for our divisions. And so, as Patrick mentioned this morning, we don't really have full inventories of many assets in North Carolina. We've got a huge network. It's expensive to get those inventories. So to start with, we just made some assumptions and created some estimates. And you can see here some of the estimates we came up with. But as an example, we said, okay, there's maybe 150 linear feet of pipe per centerline mile along this type of roadway, and we created estimates for our divisions. And then we came up with fairly good life cycles and basically divided the goal by the life cycle and said, this is how much you should be doing. And they've built their plans around that. So that's worked fairly well for the first 2 years. We're going to do a little bit of research and try to improve those life cycles. And we have multiple projects going on across the state to actually go out and get real inventories on many of these assets moving forward. So that part was kind of a top-down approach where we calculated the inventories, calculated a goal for the divisions. But the actual plan creation is a bottoms-up approach. Once we told the divisions, this is how much you need to go out and do, the divisions went out and did what they do. They went out and rode their routes and gathered information and put a plan together. And basically what this looks like for the Agile folks in the room, all of these line items really look like work orders. You know, you could think of 75,000 work orders, right? It's just a listing of what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, who's going to do it, and how much it's going to cost us. So the first year that we did this, we basically modified our work orders table. Everybody have a day cards window to create work orders? Okay. Just want to make sure I'm not speaking Spanish to someone, right? or something that somebody doesn't understand. Some other language, I guess I should have said. But we basically created a new column in the work orders table where they could check a box to say, hey, I want this work order or this task in my plan. That worked fairly well. It was kind of a simple process, but we found out when you have 250 or 350 users in the system at the same time, that was hard on the system. And I can't say it was Agile system, but it was hard on our network. And also it was a lot of open work orders and tasks in our windows. So this year we said, okay, we're going to scratch that. We're going to create a new window, which is basically mimics the work order day card window and allows our folks to create tasks ahead of time, but they're not actually scheduled tasks yet. And that's actually worked out really well. And the idea is that they'll have these line items. If you can see here at the bottom of the window when I took the screenshot, There were about 35,000 of these lines. And they'll be able to go out and do the work, and as the work progresses, we're going to create a right-click option to schedule the task and send it to our traditional work order table. So we're pretty excited about that. Some of the benefits that we've seen, and Doug can probably talk about this more because he's actually lived it where we were setting it up, but it's really an organized to-do list. It's really allowed us to focus and have a good plan at a low enough level that our supervisors and transportation workers know what they're going to be doing this week, next week, the following week, really for the whole year. We also made a requirement that everything in the plan would be spatially located, so we can use Esri products or Agile software, a variety of softwares to kind of show this plan on a map. We can show it on a map where it started and how we're progressing, right? We can easily have a bunch of red lines on a map that are red when we start the plan, and as they create tasks and the status of those tasks change, those lines turn green so we can check progress. Also, it's just easy to communicate. I mean, I don't think any time I've walked into a division office with this process, I got the deer in the headlights look, right? So I can walk in there and talk to a transportation worker, and he understands I've got 75 pipes that need to be replaced this year, right? It's kind of a new way of looking at it, and it's down at a low enough level that our legislators understand it, our transportation workers understand it, and we understand it all the way up the line. So there have been some benefits on the new planning process on the maintenance side. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Camille, and Camille's going to come up and talk about the HMIP, which is our 5-year pavement planning program.
Thanks. Good afternoon. I'm just going to highlight kind of the flow process of what we've developed with the HMIP. Again, this is based on the legislation that was mandated a few years ago. It started as a 3-year program. Now it's a 5-year program. And what we're doing and how we're using AgileAssets with this program. So unlike Matthew's RMIP, this is more at a level where we are using the optimization analysis. So in July, we run an optimization analysis on our pavements, and we provide an Excel spreadsheet to each division across the state, making recommendations of what they need to do for their plan. It will be based on the previous year's allocations because we don't have a clue what kind of money we're going to be getting. And this is for contract resurfacing, pavement preservation, and rehab. So they get the Excel spreadsheet, recommendations, send out, and by December 1st, so they have about 3.5–4 months to go into the system and develop their plan right in the system. And then once that happens, we have to start reporting out because part of the legislation is we have to provide reports on their plan and what they actually accomplished. And we also have to report on what kind of changes to their plans. They have to be accountable for their plan. So I'm going to move on to this. This is an example of optimization analysis. Based on the allocations, we run it out for 7 years based on our current data, which is usually because we have a lag time with our QA/QC, which you might have heard earlier this morning. So we're using the previous year's data when we run these, again, based on that allocation and provide to them what they should be doing. We have a couple hundred different types of treatments or combinations of treatments and their costs all in the system to provide them, and it's their plan. It's It's up to them to develop it. We're just making recommendations. So, okay, so we also run queries against kind of the back end of the AgileAssets database to provide the scenario results. The scenarios are run, as system jobs, and you can't, when we run too many system jobs, we'll crash our system. So we run SQL against those scenarios to actually get the data, and then that's what's exported into Excel for them. Okay, during the course of the year, once their plan goes to the chief for review, the Board of Transportation in North Carolina for approval, and they start their plans, then all year long, continuously, they must update their plan. We create a dynamic plan and a baseline plan in the system. The baseline plan is kind of like a static snapshot. That's the plan that gets approved by the board. The dynamic plan is what they actually go in to the database and edit. So this is the manual. We've written a manual to go with all of that to explain to them what they need to be doing to edit their plan. Within Agile and using Jasper reports or iReports, we've developed reports that they can just pull up in the report window, and it will tell them what they've done, how many miles was in their plan for, say, resurfacing, and to this date, how many miles have they accomplished. And I think they do that on a, quarterly basis, reporting at a chief's meeting. This example of a SQL query in the results for the change report. Again, every January we have to provide a change report to the legislature, and it's just basically taken line by line. This route was supposed to have been 1.5 inch overlay at whatever cost. It didn't get done. In this plan year, it got deferred out 2 years, so it ends up on the change report. And so what we've seen happen over the past couple of years, there's a lot less changes to the plan. Because of accountability, people don't really want to be called out for why didn't this get done. So this is one of the tools to help them understand that they shouldn't really be making changes to their plan once they have it. So this is an example in the system, and this left bottom connects to the right. Of all the columns we have in the dynamic plan, they have places where they have mandatory fields that need to be filled out. For example, if they do change their plan, we added an action column. And they can either add to their plan, remove from their plan, defer that route, or advance it once they get all that extra money that we all get. So, and then you can see we've added a justification column. They have drop downs so that they can justify why they made that change to the plan. And they can't pick one without the other. You have to have both. We have also added, and you can't see it in here, we have a link to pathways where they can select that route and go out and see a visual of the pavement condition. I think I've got a slide in there for that. Oh, yeah. Another requirement of the legislation is that our plan is published. So we put it out on the Connect NCDOT. Anybody can go on there and see the 5-year plan, the map, and the change report. And as you can see, they can click on a route and pull up information pertaining to that route. You put that in there twice. Okay, so that being said, that's about it, and it's working. It's working a lot better than it used to. So, any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. If on the last slide, the information, the plan that you put out to the public,
Yeah.
do you have any statistics on how many people go on and actually look at that?
I don't know if
That would be interesting
if
to see.
Doug probably does.
We backtracked that. It's not that many people.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way that it's posted, Randy, I remember him spouting off that number at some point in the past, but it was one of those things like, wow, only like 5 people have looked at this.
Right.
So, but it is a requirement of the
Yeah.
law,
Oh, yeah.
so we need to do that.
Yes,
Very interesting.
sir.
Quick question. Do you have reports on the targets you're trying to hit and actual, like, performance? Do you have reports? One, two. One.
How about I just move on
All right.
here?
Quick question. Do you have reports on the targets you're trying to hit and how far you actually gotten to them?
We set, in the optimization analysis, we set it's a threshold target.
Well, that's theoretical. And what about practical? What's been achieved using next year, what's that, inspection results?
No,
Or survey results?
No.
No such report?
No.
Okay.
yes.
What percentage of your 5-year plan ends up being changed?
Oh, gosh, I would say first it was about 50% the first year. Now I'm going to say it's down to probably about 25. So
Mostly the outer years?
mostly deferring out, and then a lot of times, and the reason they're deferring or removing a project from the plan is because they've found that they have a conflict with another project, that's going to come in and wipe that road out, and they didn't know about it, so they had it on their plan. So, I mean, this is perfectly good justification for changing plan. The plan's always going to change. It will never get down to like 0, which would be nice. Yeah.
Do you think there is a way we can improve on suggested projects? Do you feel like something's missing that could, reduce those number of those deferred projects?
Hadn't really thought about it, honestly. I mean, we have our decision trees. Our decision trees are running on every type of distress we collect, run through decision trees before we come up with our pavement condition. And that pavement condition then is of course used in the optimization analysis to determine, if it's 80 or above, it puts us in that good, fair, poor, our good, fair, poor matrix, not the federal highways. We have a kind of a separate matrix in North Carolina. We keep 2 books.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any
Good,
other questions
good.
while they're addressing this? Here we go. Charles?
Oh, Dr. Charles.
Camille, you said that you're tracking that resurfacing program and you're getting in what they actually did so that you can kind of see what the progress is. How is that information coming in? Is it coming in through the MMS?
It's coming in through the PMS when they finish doing the treatment to the road of resurfacing. Each division has people that go in the system,
Right.
users,
They're just
who
putting it
are
in through
putting
construction history,
in a
though.
date for completion when the pavement is on the ground.
Okay.
It's not about when the contract gets over, it's when the pavement's on the ground, they put a completion date and check the box saying it's been completed.
It's a manual checkbox.
Yeah.
Sure, what we would really like to have is an automated process when it occurs, that it kind of checks the box for us. But we're doing a lot of these programs through other softwares that we have not fully integrated in with our system.
Right. So
And
so
so-
they're not work orders in the maintenance system.
Right, and so then we're running a Jasper report, after SQL and Jasper report, to look at what was originally planned from the baseline plan to what was completed in the dynamic plan, and doing that kind of number crunching.
Good afternoon. My name is McNeal, the North Carolina Department of Transportation. Like Matthew said, I've had 7 titles in 5 years now, as through reorganization and changing of job duties and responsibilities, which has put me in an interesting place to try out a lot of different things. The latest, and what we've been working on for the past 2, I was fortunate to be with Matthew for about 3 months to understand, get a better feel for what data sets were available. When I took my latest job, one of the first things I was asked to do was to develop the 5-year resurfacing plan, and then specifically in Wake County, develop 5 years, roughly $150 million worth of projects, summing up to almost 3,000 different roads in 60 days with no local experts. So it was on me. And at the time, I was using my GPS to get to work. So I needed data to do this. So to do that, I started mining and started publishing out on the GoNC platform. To do that, we had, so the first thing I did was take a look at where have we been. So out of the PMS system, you can take it, export it out as a shapefile, publish it as a map service. I can see everywhere I've been for the past few years, and you can click on it and get some basic information. This was resurfaced in 2014 with an 1.5-inch asphalt overlay. So that was a good start. Also, I wanted to know what future TIP projects were coming up and how that impacted. So we had, our central unit had published a layer of all our STIP projects and where they were located. And again, it's enabled so you can click on it and get some basic information. Here is a pavement rehab on I-540. It's coming in 2022. So I'm now starting to be able to get some information to make some better decisions on where we're going to resurface. We also pushed out the pavement condition data. So this is our good, fair, poor map. Green's good, red's bad, red's poor. And it's functional, so I can see individual, if I'm interested in what's going on this road, it's all Agile information. This has a pavement condition rating of 51. It usually has a recommendation. It'll tell you percent alligator cracking, all the distresses that you need, and you can run some queries to get some ideas on where we need to go. The other thing is just looking at it spatially helps. Traditionally we've had tables. Tables don't tell the story. When you look at this, you can see a lot of red in our residential subdivisions. So that led us to say, well, we need to be spending a little more focus on those. So we went back into the system and ran some analysis. So I'm making this number up, but say our secondary pavement condition score was a 75, we found out that the subset of that, our residential subdivisions, was closer to a 55. So we could use that information with the recommended treatments and the costs associated with those treatments to come up with a distribution of funds to push money into residential subdivisions. So now we're planning for the next 5 years to spend $3.5 to $4 million in our residential subdivisions in Wake County. It's that power of seeing it and then using the data to crunch the numbers to come up with a plan to move forward. It's also you can also filter it, which was helpful. So here's my residential subdivisions with pavement condition ratings less than 40. And again, it's all fields and attributes inside the Agile data. You filter it and you can get a good visual. And then you start building your plan. So this is where we ended up with our plan. This is actually 2016 through 2023. Several of the years are already built. And some of them obviously are coming up in the future. And you can see at that funding level, we still have some of these red hairs sticking out here that are residential subdivisions under 40 currently that we're not going to get to. But that's a real powerful visual to be able to go back to my management structure and say, hey, this is what we can do. This is what we're missing. And it simplifies complex data sets into a simple picture that's easily explained. We then Also with this, you were asking about tracking completion, Charles. We take in the HMIP, as we build it, we have fields that we use to track our information. One of them is the road complete, and is the road, is it under contract? So we can set some filters here. So let me see everything that has a anticipated let before today. And let me see everything that completed status is not, let's see if I get this right, not no. Wait, completed status is, let's go for easy. Yeah, it's not no. That's, apply your filter. And I did that one wrong. Oh yeah, thank you, is before. So this is everything that has been let to date, but is not completed. So these are my roads that fall into that category. You can go into individual routes and find the basic information. Here's one that was let in August 22nd. It's a mill, 1.5. Come back in with a 1.5-inch surface mix. It's a small residential. We're estimating it to be $12,000. What that did was raise the questions that I was getting from my management up a notch. It went from, are you going to pave this road anytime soon, to, hey, I've seen it on my phone. I see that you're planning on there. Is everything still okay? Or, hey, when are we going to get to this one? I don't see it on the map. And that was really helpful in getting a lot of information out. The other thing you were asking about was how many people are looking at the map or the information that says what roads we're going to resurface. By pushing this is actually our 5-year, this is my dynamic plan. We publish a static 5-year view out. So, give me 1 second. So here's the it's an older version. This is 2018 to 2020. This gets published out on our NCDOT Go site, which is an AgileAssets site. And it's broken down. Let me throw the legend on it. Preservation, resurfacing, rehabilitation by line work, color by year. This is external, so that anybody in the state of North Carolina can take and access this map directly, and we publish it out, and we get a lot of information or interaction that way from a visual standpoint. And then they can say, it doesn't have all the same information our more detailed does, but here this road is scheduled for fiscal year 19, full depth patching, 1.5-inch overlay, $1.3 million project, and that helps us get the information out. Another thing that you can do with this structure from our dynamic HMIP is, now if I want to see, we put in here the individual contracts when we do our contract groupings, particularly in Wake County where we have 5 or 6 different contracts to do a year's worth of work just due to the size of the area. I can come in and say, let me see contract, the roads associated with contract D183, which is our contract number. And these are the roads associated with those contracts. It allows us to quickly filter in and then see, is it complete? And you can click on it and get some basic information. Now we use that. Another thing that we've been doing is taking and doing an ADA curb ramp assessment for our division. Going out and assessing each one of our ADA curb ramps down to the curb asset inventory, down to the individual ramp. That we use to take, whenever we resurface a road, we need to know how much additional we need to put in there for ADA ramps. So what we can do, here is our ADA curb ramp for our sites that we've located. This is for, we found so far in our division, we have roughly 17,000. If you want to, we can then run a query and say, show me everything within 50 feet of the center line of the road that we're resurfacing, and we're going to assign that to a contract. Here's our contract for DE183, and these are all the curb ramps associated that are non-compliant. I know I have 303 on this particular site, just based off of the spatials. Also, we can take and throw it up into a dashboard view. Here, so far in our division, we have 17,615 ramps. Right now, of those, 43%, or roughly 8,500, are compliant. And we can track our progress through the collector app, taking the picture when it's been fixed, taking and change the attributes to show compliance, and hopefully start moving that to be a lot more compliant as we go through. So some of the things, when we're building multi-year reports, it's very time consuming. For us, our resurfacing platform had 3,000 individual handwritten lines. That's probably 20 different attributes that we filled in manually. Hopefully, I liked what you guys were showing with the 7.3 version, where we can take and set limits and hopefully build our plans that way. And that'll cut down a lot of the time and also help guarantee that the sections that we're picking are the right locations. But with that, I'm almost out of time. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I have a question. How long are your managed sections?
We're switching over to Esri roads and highways. So when we build our HMIP, we do it by milepost. It's a little different on some of the things we do. For when we're building the RMIP, we're doing it on maintenance sections. So we might have 3 different sections inside of a road, inside of our project.
So your good per pour is averaged differently depending on the length of the road?
Yeah, when we do our pavement condition surveys, we do it by section, and so you can have different sections that rate differently or have different distresses.
Yeah, but our good, fair, poor condition is a lane mile weighted average.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir. Oh.
I have to use this? The one map you showed had the work plan on it with the years color-coded.
Yes.
And we do provide a very similar thing to our clients. One of the big challenges that we have is, I know that in order to get those neighborhoods to show up all in the same year like that, are you sort of generally doing projects by neighborhood?
In our residential subdivisions, we're targeting, in Wake County in particular, subdivisions that have multiple roads below 40 PCS. And when we go in, we do the whole subdivision because there's nothing worse than doing one in the back and then one over here and the next year and another one over here. So we're deliberate in that.
And do you have an automated process to get a full neighborhood to come out as the result, or are you ultimately have to massage the final results to get that?
I have a dollar figure I'm hitting for my residential subdivisions, so I start building them geographically, trying to spread the work out across the county, and then I work and check it through our HMIP as I build it till I hit that number. And then I have designations in there for residential subdivisions versus traditional roads to help me track it. Thank you.
And we're hoping to put all of our plans in an environment like this, and we can't wait for 7.3 where we can modify the data here and hit feedback to Agile and update some of the data tables and go have that two-way type interface. That's really the vision of where we're going. And Doug's really kind of leading the way of getting all this data out here. We've just created an RMIP, the routine maintenance improvement plan map, to do a lot of the same things. Here this week, hopefully the data will be live. We've created data views from the HMIP to our GIS online, so that as the divisions go in and finish those projects and check the box, so to speak, we can update the maps as projects get completed.
So yeah, everything just automatically changes. Everything that's referencing that layer. So a lot of times for the maps that I show my executive staff, I just show them what's coming. So everything that's completed status, I filter out, so that whenever we check a road off from completed with this automatic push out, that map automatically changes and that road disappears. So we're always looking forward.
We're also hoping once we collect all of our inventories, they can be displayed in here, and we can manage the inventory here, but then have the ability to create work orders and tasks in Agile which connect to our financial system so we can track historic records and attributes from that side. So kind of tying the two systems together and using them, using the pluses of both